My partner in crime, Cory King, is at home with the flu. So I think he might be watching the stream. Can we get a real quick hi, Cory, on 3? 1, 2, 3. Hi, Cory. We miss you. You know, normally he doesn't miss. The last time he missed is because he was having a brand new baby. So today we are going to be talking, welcome to Grid February. We're going to be talking about how to wholesale, how to assign contracts for quick profits. You're not going to want to miss this one. So we got a great guest today. Who is here at Grid for their very first time? I love it. I love it. Awesome. Charles, welcome. You just walked in. Great. Who are you looking to meet tonight? People interested in commercial real estate. What do you do? You work with Walt. You're a commercial real estate agent. Fantastic. Anybody interested in commercial real estate? Yeah, take a look around. Take a look around. Come talk to Charles. Come talk to Charles. Glad you're here. Who else is here for the very first time that's feeling brave? DeBryant? DeBryant? Which one? Is it DeBryant? Yeah, DeBryant. DeBryant? Awesome. Who are you? What are you looking to meet today?
Lenders, investors.
Looking to meet some lenders and some investors. Do we have any lenders here? Anybody got some cash here? We're in a mortgage company, so I see there's some mortgage lenders. We got Max is hiding back there. Max is a secret loan officer way over there. Morgan's out front. We got some guys from Maverick here, and I saw some other names go up. Fantastic. We got any investors here? Any investors? Awesome. Yeah, you're in the right place. So what is Grid? Grid is a global real estate community. We are a global real estate community. We have been teaching how to invest in real estate for 17 years. I know you just walked in, if you want a chair, there's some chairs right there. Grab one, set one up. You can get right in front of DL. He won't mind at all. Yeah, we got 5 chairs there for you. DL, do you mind setting those up? I appreciate you. So we have been teaching how to invest in real estate for 17 years, giving it away. We started licensing Grid 11 years ago, and we started teaching here in Knoxville a little over 3 years ago. We are not gurus. I am not an expert. There's no books for sale in the back of the room, right? We're real people doing real deals, looking to make real connections. And our mission is to connect, learn, right, and engage with people just like you. We believe that the pathway to financial freedom is real estate investing and small business ownership. It's available to all of us. Who in here is a small business owner? I love it. Yes, ding, ding. Thank you, Zach. If you don't know Zach, Zach's a great guy. Zach is a small business owner. This is a side business. The Done Right Holloway is a side hustle that he works his butt off for, right? Yeah, and so it's been really interesting, cool to watch his journey as an entrepreneur, to see him scaling, buying more equipment so you can take care of your junk in your Holloway. I think we got another junk service in here too. So we got some options for you, right? We want to build wealth. We want to create impact through real estate because money is good for the good that it can do. You know, I don't know if anybody, remember Tim Ferriss when he was like the guy, this is pre-podcast? Yes, 4-Hour Work Week. Anybody read that? Yeah. One of the things that he talked about that I thought was really interesting is he talked about what do you have? What's up, Will? He talked about having silos of other things that you were enjoying and how it was important to have something that you were making incremental progress on along the way, because what he saw from these high performers, hey, Amanda, we got a couple seats up front. What he saw from these high performers are the only place they were really experiencing competence and expertise and getting that dopamine hit was in work. So when they made money, what do? They just work more because they haven't established anything else to work towards. So really think about, like, we talk about that a lot, like, why am I doing this? What's the impact I'm trying to create? It's because we want to see you be happy. I have sat in many, many rooms of millionaires that are unhappy. I've sat in many rooms larger than this. We go around the room in real estate and we ask, who's made $1 million? And the hands go up. And who felt better if they made $1 million? And no one's hand stays up because it's an empty pursuit. So we want to create impact through real estate, welcome investors, all experience levels. Who's who's looking to buy their first deal? Who's brand new? Pete is looking to buy a flip. I see Boris is over there. Remember your name, my friend. PG? Anyone else looking to buy their first deal? Awesome, I see. Brad back there, Steve, he's here for the first time. All right. Who owns more than 10 doors? Who's feeling brave? I see some folks that own more than 10 doors that aren't raising their hands. You know, that's fine. I'll tell you who they are later if you want some advice. Those are the gurus. You can go talk to them. So if you are brand new, we want to invest with you. We want to teach you how to invest. We want to give you the skills and the confidence and the network to be able to go on this journey, right? Because it is a journey going from an employee to an entrepreneur or a small business owner or an investor, right? Is an identity journey. And if you're super experienced, you got more than 10 doors, we want to do deals with you, hit me up. I like money. Let's make some money together. That's why we're running this thing. So the goal is to have 1,000 communities around the country for Grid, to get 1 million people financially free. And there's a couple things that are going on. Who in here is a real estate agent? Awesome. So we started something, Gain Tactical Tuesday, Gain, Gain Tactical Tuesday from 8:30 to 9:15. Every week, I'm leading a call with some of the best agents in the country. Just had Amanda Dahl on talking about how to build a database, how to build a sphere worth influencing. Next week, we got Seth Levin. Seth is the #1 KW agent in New York City, teaching negotiations. Great guy, amazing course. He teaches a course on how to get into luxury with no sphere because he moved to New York and he built this luxury business with no connections, didn't know anybody, right? This stuff is, and we got a really great lineup for the rest of the month as well. So, who's got a win they want to share? Who's got a win they want to share? Hey, Lily, stand up, raise your hand. So Lily back there, if you came in late, Lily is the best entrepreneur I know. She sold 1,500 Girl Scout cookies last year, so she is selling Girl Scout cookies back there. Don't buy your Girl Scout cookies from that person at work that you don't even like. Forget their kids. Buy them from Lily. Buy them from Lily. Buy from the best. Who's got a win they want to share? Pete, what do you got?
I celebrated 1 year in business as an independent financial advisor.
I love this. Yes, let's go. If you haven't talked to Pete, Pete is really interesting. Who's heard of 1031 exchanges? All right, who hasn't heard of a 1031 exchange? Has no idea what I'm talking about. Awesome, I love that. So a 1031 exchange is a strategy where you can defer taxes, right? Because half of the game, right, is the deference of taxes. If I can defer taxes, if I have a better tax strategy, right, that's just as important as getting a great return. Great, fantastic. You're getting 12% returns on your money, but you're paying 30% taxes on that money because you don't have a tax strategy. Like that the math doesn't really math out when you start looking at this. So a 1031 exchange is a strategy where I can roll over capital gains into another asset and defer those capital gains to the taxes on those to a later point. He's got some really interesting Delaware statutory trust products, some opportunity zone products. Like talk to him. There's some really interesting, sophisticated strategies you can do. I've sat in on like a really great webinar with and a seminar in person with those guys. So, anybody else got a win? Carolyn, what's up?
I was expecting you to call me now. I'm not for Cuban sandwich,
Cuban sandwiches from Publix are a win. If you haven't tried a Cuban sandwich from Publix, it's not really a Cuban sandwich, but it's the next best thing we're going to get in East Tennessee.
This will be like Cory answering when he usually has the win. I just finished designing one of his 30-day flips coming up for him that he's starting on.
Cory just, finished designing a 30-day flip. Let's go, snaps. So anybody remember the flip we did, that Cory did, that went double the budget where he spent $100,000 and it's our what not to do example? Anybody there for that one? Yes? Morgan's raising his hand. So now we've got the other benchmark. We got the how to do it in 30 days and make more than $30,000. And then how to do it, in over a year and go double over your budget and only get saved because you figured out how to student rent it, right? So we can show you both ones. We're going to be teaching on that coming up this year and walking you through exactly how to run that playbook. Awesome. So who am I? I mentioned my name is Justin Myers. I am a father. I'm a Virgo. I like yoga. I like being active and going outside. And I really love connecting with strangers, connecting with new people. So I'm director of expansion for Grid nationally. So I get to talk to agent investors like myself around the country about opening up new communities. I lead, this organization with Cory, and then we've got a real estate and sales team. I started back when I was 23 in 2005 working as a mortgage broker. And I have done everything you could do, including washing the dishes and cleaning the offices, right, on this journey. So my partner, Cory, is a great real estate investor. He's at the house who's really been on a really cool 5-year journey of just wealth creation, like consistent wealth creation is a great example of what you can do in less than 5 years. So Cory's at home right now. His wife's retired. He's got his 3rd kid under the age of 4, right? And I think Cory's going on his 7th property, and he's totally replaced all of his bills with passive income just in the last few years, like relocating back here, not knowing a ton of folks. All right, so who's got a weird niche? We're going to do this backwards. Who's got something they think no one else does? Like Justin's a public adjuster. Pete, we already bragged on you, so I'm not gonna come back to you. Who else got a weird niche? All right, who does? You cut trees, awesome. Jeff cuts trees. Anyone need a tree company? All right. Who's got a very normal niche? By the way, where are my sponsors? Morgan, can you come up here real fast? Kristen Wallace, real fast. I see Kaler. They're putting you on the spot since they didn't show up. Yep. Yeah, so Morgan, real fast. What do you do? Who are you?
My name is Morgan Hardy. I work here at Foundation Mortgage. We do all sorts of loans. We do Ooh, you get in the camera? Sorry about that. My name's Morgan Hardy, and I work here at Foundation Mortgage, and we do all sorts of real estate investment loans, primary residence loans, anything you could want. If it's got a roof and a person lives or stays underneath it, we can finance it.
Excellent. And Morgan is always here. Morgan is, and I think I said this with love, you would agree, right, Morgan? Morgan is a mortgage nerd. He is a mortgage nerd, so come nerd out about it with him. Kaler, come on up. Kaler is with Approach Lending, so Approach is our private money lender sponsor.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So we are a private lender here locally. Two brothers started it, and we are branching out into the southeast and hoping to just grow our business as we continue to add residential fix and flips is our main bread and butter, and then also going into mobile homes and new construction as well.
Fantastic. Thank you. So on the intro slides, if you need that information, that's Approach Lending. They come here all the time. Kristen, you just have to come be in the camera, and I'll do it for you. So this is the only thing that I think Kristen Wallace is afraid of. I watched her build her business to being brand new when we were both brand new to having over 1,000 doors, and she is an absolute pit bull when it comes to property management. By far the best I've ever met in terms of rent collection, negotiation. I don't know how to pull rental numbers. People ask me how you pull rental numbers, and I was like, I have no idea. I call Kristen. Why am I going to pay some website when she manages 1,000 doors in Knoxville? Like I'm not going to trust a website. Like I actually go to a person. That's just me. So, Kristen Wallace, Jacob Lay Property Management. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you, Justin.
You're very welcome. All right. Cool. Who in here has money that they're looking to deploy? Who's got capital they're looking to deploy for somebody else? Carl's got some. Wayne's got some capital. Anyone else got capital looking to deploy? All right, so we need some people with some money. Maybe. I don't know. I'm seeing a couple of these, so like kind of. I think they want to spend some money. Who's got a deal they're looking to sell tonight? All right, Will's got one. Morgan's got one. I got like 10. So who else? None of these agents have a deal? None of y'all want to sell anything? My boy Charles that runs Sono Investors does. Awesome. Jay does. Jay invited some people. Okay, there we go. So reluctantly, maybe somebody will sell some stuff or give you some money. I'm not really sure. We're feeling shy today. Dale's got some deals. Dale's going to be talking about how to wholesale today. Awesome. So if you look at the name tags up here, we do this deliberately to make it easy for us all to network, right? Because it's kind of awkward here, but we know we all need each other. So everyone with the yellow one is a wholesaler, a bird dog, a referral partner. They've got deals. Deal, go get a yellow one, man. They gave you the wrong one. We'll get you hooked up. I don't want to. So we got green is money, right? I'm a hard money lender, private money partner, mortgage broker, gator lender, right? Awesome. Who is a contractor? Who's a contractor? Raise your hand high. Tim's a contractor. Justin's a contractor. Anybody else? Boris is. Fantastic. Gary is. Gary and Brad, I'm working with them on some new builds. They're a contractor. Who's got a need? Who came here today to meet somebody unique? Anybody got somebody they want to meet before they leave today? Trey wants to meet some flippers. Fantastic. Anybody else? Man, this is like high school. Bueller? Yes, Yolanda. You want to meet one of each, because Yolanda's first trip here. So go up, introduce yourself to these people. Like, I was just talking to Shaylin. Shaylin's about to buy her second midterm rental. Already have it. Just setting it up. So she's running midterm rentals, and she's about to set up her second one and launch this. And I remember when she first came in here and she hadn't bought one, right? Like people in this room are taking action. I love it. DL's color coded. All right. And who's brand new today? Brand new, here for the first time. Thank you. We're glad you're here. Don't leave without grabbing one of us. If you're new walking in here, there's some chairs over here. Frankie, can you grab some chairs? Or Travis, can you grab some chairs for those folks? Awesome. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Okay. So we'll do these, I think. We're going to come back to these giveaways. I want to get into this. So big, important disclaimer. I am not a tax professional. Every agent you're talking to, by the way, this isn't every agreement you sign with them, whether you've read it or not, right? It says explicitly that they are not allowed to give you legal advice on the contract. Big capital letters on the last page of that listing agreement. It also says that we are not tax professionals. We are not appraisers, home inspectors, tax assessors, right? We can just advise on the marketing and sale of property. So trust but verify, right? And if you don't have money to lose, you might not be ready to invest, right? You got to have excess income. We got to build our cash machine before we can build our wealth machine. Now, today we're going to be talking about a strategy that a lot of folks use to build their cash machine. Okay, if you're in here, we are live streaming this, and this is a release that we're going to take some photos. Who's ready to get started? All right. We're going to do something real quick. Here's what I want to do. All right. If you're sitting on the end like Carly, raise your hand if you're on the end of the row. Okay, the person next to them, you're going to pair up really fast. We're going to do an exercise really, really fast. This is going to be really easy. So let's look at the person next to you. Mantonio, Zach, look at the person next to you. One of you decide who's going to go first. Your job is to smile. I think the person on this side should do it. The person on this side, your job is not to smile back. All right? That's it. Let's see if you can. I don't think you can make it 15 seconds. All right? And 3, 2, 1, go. All right. We're going to switch. We're going to do it the other way. And we come back here. Awesome. Other way real fast. Other way. All right, we're going to run it in the other direction now. So, Zach, it's your turn to smile, and Carl can't smile back at you. So if you're on this side, you get to be the one smiling. If you're on this side, you can't smile back. It's uncomfortable, isn't it, right? Yeah. So the way you show up affects other people. So we're going to interact, we're going to participate. I know everyone's awkward. It's the end of the day. We got booze back there. We got kombucha. Figure it out. You know, let's get loose. All right. So we'll do it the other way real fast. 3, 2, 1. There we go. All right. I love it. Total chaos, Dalton. Total chaos. If you're at home watching this, the reason why we're doing this is a psychological phenomenon. It's very difficult not to smile at other people when they smile at us. Very, very difficult. All right. Cool. Let's jump into it. We feeling loose? You meet your neighbors? All right. So, this is a people business. If you don't like people, real estate investing, at least this facet of it might be kind of challenging, right? Because the whole point of this is to put yourself in a position with a motivated seller. So I'm going to tell you a story. I went on a listing appointment to give somebody a quick cash offer 2 days ago, and I got out there, and what I found out was she was about 10 months behind on her mortgage. She's 10 months behind on her mortgage because she's a widower, and she's been, all alone at the house, like online dating and sending money to scammers. And they've taken about $30,000 of her dollars, right? So we sat down, we had a conversation, we put a budget together. I'm going to check in on her tomorrow. I think her family's going to come help her out. She's really embarrassed to tell them what's going on. That is what it actually is like when you do this successfully and you go out and you're sitting in someone's living room. So if you don't have empathy for strangers, if you don't like talking to other people, if that's uncomfortable for you, it's not going to necessarily be easy to sit at someone's living room and navigate that with grace. We may end up buying that house from her. Maybe she's going to go live with her family, and she may want that offer from us, right? But you got to sit there and listen and build trust and rapport with somebody, and that is not easy. That's why we're practicing and doing all that. So wholesaling is the process of finding a good deal. So I'm looking for a motivated seller, right? Every seller is motivated by one of two conditions: circumstance or emotion. Circumstance or emotion. Now, we know this. Like, it's not one or the other. It's both, right? But circumstance, hey, I'm going through a divorce and I have to sell this home, as a part of the divorce. Emotion, I'm going through a divorce and I cannot stand to be in this house anymore. It reminds me of my partner. So sometimes it's even both of those, but I got to find a good deal. A motivated seller is motivated by one of those two things, right? I've got to get it under contract, and then I have the ability to sell the rights to that contract to another investor, right? Every contract comes what is called with a bundle of rights. One of those rights is assignment, and sophisticated investors use this. I'm going to pick on my friend Carl. Do you have more than one entity that you buy properties in, Carl? Yeah. Do you always know which entity is going to be the one that's going to close on it when you go under contract, right? So you are legitimately, when you get, Carl's got a few units. He's someone I look up to. He's a good friend. So when you've been doing this a little while, he's been in the game for a long time, you may have more than one entity that's going to close it. So when I go under contract, I'm going to buy this, but I don't know if I'm going to do it alone, or maybe me and Bill are going to do this, or I'm going to do this with Cory. So I don't know which entity is going to close upon it. So I might assign my rights over to another entity. Does that make sense, y'all? But I can also do this to somebody else. I could say, hey, I went and found a good deal. I thought I could close it. Honestly, I don't think I got the bandwidth right now. Hey, Charles, do you want this deal? I've already gone through the trouble of finding it, negotiating it, marketing it. That's worth something. Could I assign this over to you and get a little bit back for my time, right? And you might buy a deal. Who's bought a deal from a wholesaler before? Yeah. So they're an essential part of the process. All right. So I'm going to walk through this. I'm going to bring Dale up here, and we're going to have a little conversation. So we're going to do some quick math. So if I go out and I locate a property that'd be worth $100,000 after a $10,000 renovation, so I can be confident that an investor would buy that property for at least $60,000, right? And why is that? We're using the math formula that we've talked about before in here, which is after repair value. In this case, my after repair value is $100,000 minus repairs, right? My repairs are $10,000. So I'm at $90,000. 70% of that amount is a rule of thumb they teach everywhere. Now, it's hard to find that, to be really honest. Is everybody buying at that rate, or are you buying with some skinnier margins? Anybody buying skinnier deals right now? You say you're buying at that formula? Will says yes. How about you, Deal? Okay, so there we go. So 60,000 is 63. We're just using some round numbers there. That's what that is. So I can put that property under contract for 55,000, and I know that someone else will be willing to pay me a wholesale fee. I could go assign that to somebody else. Does that make sense? That's it. Is just another facet of the game. Is I'm understanding what the market value of this asset is. And then I'm going to go get it under contract, and I'm going to assign it to somebody else, and I'm going to collect a wholesale fee. Does that make sense? Say yes? All right. So we can walk through the math here in a minute, and I'm going to bring DL up here, and we'll start having a conversation. So really simply, I sign an agreement with that investor that's actually going to do the deal, right? Ryan Spencer is going to run that play for me. So I go and I assign that contract with him, and I'm going to assign my rights over. He's going to give me $5,000. And they can go step in and act as the buyer in that contract. Okay? Real simple. They have all the rights that are enumerated in that contract, just as they were the original buyer. That's all that wholesaling is, right? This is the math we just talked about. Awesome. Who thinks wholesaling is a good thing? Who thinks wholesaling is a bad thing? Nobody? Everyone loves wholesalers? Anybody not like wholesalers? Wholesaling is very controversial. Let's be very clear. It's not like, and I would say typically, it's not necessarily because of the wholesaling. It has to maybe do with somebody who doesn't know their numbers trying to sell me a deal based off of numbers they don't understand. That's I would say, is that fair to say that's what everyone's problem is with anything different? Does anyone think it's like they have a problem with what I just described? Or is it this guy called and he told me that this thing would be worth $300,000 when really it's going to be worth $200,000, and that it would take $20K in repairs when it was really $70K in repairs, right? And I wouldn't buy it for what he has it under contract for, and he's trying to make not $5,000, he's trying to make $25,000, right? So basically, ARV, 70% of that minus the renovation cost is a good purchase price for the average investor. So different than the way that I did it. I subtracted the repairs first. You can just do ARV, 70% of ARV, 100,000, 70,000 minus my 10K in repairs, and the math should work for you. And the difference between what that amount is and what you get is your wholesale fee. So I'd like to introduce, DL, you want to come up here? All right, we're going to see if I can get this mic to work while you're up here. Awesome. DL, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, certainly.
I'll give you this one.
What's up, everybody? So I'm DL Marlowe, like you said. I'm one of the co-owners of a company that was founded, you might say, in the beginning of 2024 called Knoxville Home Guys. We've got a huge story, 3 guys coming together to make a fully functioning fix and flip and wholesale business a reality, and lots of bumps along the way, and we've learned a lot, so looking forward to sharing that experience.
Awesome. So we've talked before. Can you hear, Will? Yeah. So we've talked before about footprints in the snow, right? Footprints in the snow is the concept. If there's a snowstorm out there and I'm following somebody, I don't want to follow the guy that left 8 hours ago, do I? Right? I want to follow the person that's just around the bend so I can still see their footprints. So we wanted to get somebody here, right, who just started this, who is just doing this, and this is going out on me, isn't it? This is going to be interesting.
We can pass.
Yeah, we'll work this thing out. So we wanted to get someone in here who was newer in there. If you want to grab a seat, man, we'll sit down. Dalton calls this the Drew Barrymore show. Yeah. So I am a poor guest host. So we're gonna go through this. I want to have DL up here so we can just kind of have a conversation. You know. So the first one is wholesaling legal? Yes, wholesaling is absolutely legal, all right? To be really clear, there are states that have regulations in place. There are states that are requiring, I believe, Virginia, where the Home Grid chapter is located, you have to have a real estate license to be a wholesaler. That's the case in some other states as well. That is not the case in the state of Tennessee, all right? So you need to check your local laws and your compliance, all right? And if you're watching at home, I love this. Cory has this up there. If you need to get your real estate license, reach out to us. We can give you a deep discount on getting your license, and happy to talk to you about what that process is. We've got some people, and we have a national brokerage. So we've got some folks that are just hanging their license because they want to be wholesalers. So, DL, do you need a real estate license in Tennessee?
No, we do not.
Okay, all right.
Would you like me to expound?
Yeah.
Okay, no, you don't. Tennessee is commonly known as the Wild West of real estate in the East, okay? So what that means is you go look up Tennessee state law in regards to real estate in general, or typically in the realm of assigning contracts and so forth. It's pretty gray. That's not to say ethics aren't important. They're extremely important. I could give 1,000 reasons as to why, but suffice it to say, no, you do not need a real estate license to wholesale in the state of Tennessee.
Yeah. And so just one thing about licenses in general, dealing with real estate agents in general, like Tennessee's been pretty loose. I've had brokers here tell me a lot of things pretty loose. You know, contracts can lapse. We can just sign amendments, putting them back into contract. Who has bought a property without a survey in the last couple of years? Who's bought a property with the survey? 3 hands went up. I talked to Cory about this we did 75 transactions last year. Less than 5 of them had a survey involved. Like it's just a very different kind of state. So what's the importance of having a real estate license? If there is a licensee involved in the transaction, they can wholesale, they can do whatever. They need to disclose the fact that they have a license. Anytime you're talking to a licensee, you need to be really clear, who do they represent, right? if you come to an open house and you think Justin's a really swell guy and he's charming, and I am, and we're going to be friends, my job is not to be a cool guy and negotiate a fair deal. My job is to get every dollar I can out of your pocket for my seller. I've got a legal, ethical, right, obligation to do so. Does that make sense? So like if someone comes in and they tell me, oh, this is a great house and we're approved for more money, like I have to go back and report that to my seller and be like, I know they offered us, right, a fair offer, but it turns out they got more cash they could come to. So just keep that in mind. Anytime I'm talking to a licensee, there should be a conversation about agency, and it should be really clear, like, are they acting as an agent for themselves, for another party? Are they going to represent you in this transaction? Are they not going to? No one's going to be represented, but we should be having a conversation about agency anytime we're having an interaction. And there are some new laws that have gone into place nationally, right, where any real estate agent has to have a signed agreement in place with any buyer before they can show them property, send them a video, right? And it's always been the case that you always had to establish agency in writing in the state of Tennessee, but you have to have some kind of agreement. That could be a one-time showing agreement, but something in place where you've expressly kind of had a conversation about what is going to happen as a result of this. If we go show the property and you like it. Now, I've got a good friend in here that has worked on a model where it's a fee for service model. I really like it. If you want to talk about that afterwards, you're an agent. We can geek out about it. I think it's really, really smart. But just know that, like, that's the importance of a license. You should be having these conversations. If you're not having these conversations, feel free to ask and get clear on this. This is new stuff for everybody. So you do not need a license to sell your own property. You do not need a license to contract rights you directly control. So your contract to purchase this gives you what's called an equitable interest in the property, and then you can assign that, okay? But the key on this is that my contract has to be clearly assignable. That's why one of the members of your dream team needs to be a real estate attorney, right? You're gonna feel really dumb when you cheaped out on LegalZoom or something, or you got a contract off there and you find out that you lost tens of thousands of dollars because you were willing to pay a small amount of money for legal counsel. So how'd y'all get your contracts, DL?
Well, we had it maybe the easier way where things were, I'll bring it back and say it this way. The Knoxville Home Guys logo and name we actually do not own. So didn't come up with it. I think it's a great name, but it's actually a licensing deal with a company out of Minnesota called Home Guys, and they're Home Guys National. And so they started some people call it a franchise situation. It's really, we refer to it every time we communicate with them as a licensing agreement kind of situation. So, so we're licensed under them to use the name Home Guys. So we got everything kind of covered through them. However, got a great story about getting a lawyer involved in putting our contracts to the test. Made us sweat for a long time, but we did receive all of our contracts from our parent company, but we did send them to a real estate attorney for review. So what he's saying is true. It's worth every penny, maybe $500 to have them review everything you're going to use in regards to contracts and wholesaling.
Yeah, so we talk about this, those 7 levels of freedom, right? We talked about this before. The first level is identity. The second level is the skill level. Like, how do I get the skills of whatever I'm trying to do? If I'm an agent, how do I learn how to contract and get stuff under contract? If I'm a wholesaler, how do I learn how to make the phone ring, right? Get properties under contract. Level 3 is business ownership, where now I understand my KPIs, my key performance indicators. I understand the math of my business, right? And I can start to generate predictable income and get predictable results and have a P&L. And so that's level 3 is, hey, we're going to get together. We're going to go into a new venture. We are going to partner with someone that has proven systems, procedures, and mentorship, and we're going to enter into a licensing relationship because we think it's worth it. Does that make sense? That's one approach to doing it. Not a bad approach. There's a reason why they've been able to scale up faster. So, DL, where do you find buyers?
So started building our first relationships with buyers. This is not a plug that they have told me to use, by the way, but this was the first real estate meetup I ever attended was Grid, and was the first place I began building my buyers list. So I would say number one, Grid's got a Facebook group that's super invaluable if you're seeking to be a wholesaler. Tons of people execute deals by assigning them through people they meet in real estate groups and on Facebook groups such as Grid. And so that's how we started building our buyers list initially, was through use of Facebook groups, sending a post out just as simple as like, hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm going to have a lot of deals coming in that are going to be off-market deals in the Knoxville area. Introduce yourself. Would you like to be on my buyers list? Send me your email. And it just starts kind of snowballing from there. You keep reposting that and reposting that. And but then we kind of found out about a tool called Investor Lift. It's a bit more of a premium to get access to more buyers, but it's a pretty awesome system where you can, spend a good chunk of change, and you can get access to about 10,000 buyers in any given region. And so, yeah, I would say platforms like Investor Lift, but definitely Facebook groups, real estate groups, and just keep your notepad out and get people's email addresses. I mean, we did that for months on end just at the beginning and started sending out our email list.
So I got a couple questions that I think might make sense. So how many deals did you do last year, and what's your target each month?
So we did 27 deals last year. It should have been 30, really. That's where we left the end of the year. But our target every month is 5 to 7 deals. That would be like exactly where we want to be this year. Hope to do 60 to 80 deals this year would be great. And yeah, more information about scaling our team and so forth in order to make that happen. But 5 to 7 deals a month right now, that's the goal.
Okay. And then how big of a buyer's list did you need before you started getting some traction? Like, what was the goal? What was the initial goal? Except if I'm starting out, man, what's my first benchmark that I want to hit?
If you're going to do it the old-fashioned way, which is build your buyers list manually, I mean, the reality is as soon as you get a buyer, you can start posting a deal to your email list. Facebook groups, are kind of like having a list of buyers already that are, Grid has who knows how many people that are a part of that group. They're going to get a notification that there's a post and so forth. Investors are constantly surfing those Facebook groups for deals. And so really the Facebook groups are, every time you post there, it's almost like you're posting to a pre-made buyers list. But I would say you definitely want to shoot for 100 people in the first month. Find a way to meet 100 people and get 100 contacts, interested investors, and you'll find soon enough. I mean, who knows? I didn't see exactly how many people were looking for deals in the room, but most everyone in this room is probably looking for a real estate investment opportunity, and you might have the deal that they want. So I would leave here with a ton of emails and contacts.
So it sounds like finding buyers, like in this day and age, with the groups that we have in this community, with the access to free technology that we have, with the way we're connected, is not maybe like the limiting factor. Probably. Okay, great. So finding buyers. Anybody any questions on finding buyers? Is that pretty straightforward? Right? Awesome. So let's talk about the mechanics of actually running this play. So, right, I'm going to go out. I'm going to get a property under contract. Who's heard that you can get into wholesaling because you can buy property with no money? Anybody heard this one? That's the reason to get into wholesaling, says you can do it with no money. Great, yeah. So here's a great question. So what happens? I've got no money. I went to a webinar. I watched somebody on Facebook. I saw YouTube, and it says that I can go get this thing. Like, what do I have to do? Do I have to buy the property? If I get it under contract, I assign it over to Morgan, and then Morgan doesn't perform. Typical Morgan. No. So Morgan doesn't perform. Like, how do I protect myself? What do I have to do?
We actually have gone through this situation numerous times where maybe a buyer didn't come through, and you have to figure out, what are we going to do now? Are we going to kill the deal, or are we going to continue and purchase the property? So we've done both, but technically you don't have to do anything, right? So that's kind of the point of having a contract that's drawn up with very explicit language that just states something along the lines of, if this contract cannot be reassigned, buyer and seller will agree to terminate within X amount of days, right? And so there's typically a term length on the contract. Ours is 14 days, so we enter into an agreement with sellers for 14 days. And some of you are like, well, it's not nearly enough time to get a deal to go through, and you'd be surprised, okay? You'd be surprised. But so after that time period expires and we're not able to find a deal, unfortunately, we do have to go back to the seller to kill the deal. However, I would say this is just where you kind of want to, we choose to operate from this perspective that we're very straightforward with sellers on the front end, that, hey, we're wholesaling your property. We don't find that it's just a big, it's not a negative incentive for them. At the end of the day, what does the seller want? They want the money in their hand, but they also want someone who's going to be straightforward with them. So I would say we've seen a lot of success just being straightforward about the fact that, hey, here's what I'm going to do in your case. So they understand, and if the deal doesn't work out, that's exactly how we phrase it to them. They're 14-day contracts, so what's the seller out? 14 days worth of time? We tried, we couldn't get it done. Sorry, we'd love to try again if you want to, and oftentimes they're even willing to say, okay, let's try again at a lesser price. Can I just say, you'll probably got more questions. I'll come back to that. I got another piece about going back for price reductions. Ethics mean everything, how you're gonna wholesale. You'll either lose all respect, at least for me, how you go about things, or you'll gain a lot of respect from a lot of people and redeem the image of a wholesaler and what it means to do it right. So back to that maybe later.
So here's what we believe, and this is the reason why to be in grid. Does anybody have transactional funding in this room? Anybody offer transactional funding? Do you all do any transactional funding, Kaylor? Okay. You know what transactional funding? Transactional funding is I might need the money to close on this property before I could resell it to somebody else. Like, right? I get to the table and I actually have to close, because maybe my title company doesn't perform or something like that. You have the resources, if you look around, to back yourself, to be able to go into a room and act with confidence that you could deliver on the contract that you're performing on. I'd say it's our belief, right, that if I go out and I find a deal and I'm trying to wholesale this deal, that it should be a good enough deal that I would buy this deal, right? And that should protect me. And then we undergo some steps on how do I vet a buyer? This is some of the value of what a real estate agent does, right? Anybody sold a property for owner by themselves before? Nobody? One? Wayne? None of the investors in here have ever tried to sell a property by themselves? I love you guys. Call me up. I'll list all your properties. That's amazing. I don't believe you. I just don't, right? Because what I've seen is like, we don't value that part of like pre-qualifying the buyer, getting it to the closing table until we've touched the stove and been burned, right? And like it falls out of contract and you're like, oh, wait a sec. There might be something to this, like getting it to the closing table with the same terms. So one way, when you're doing this activity, we always want to protect ourselves, right? So I'm writing a contract, like it is smart to have the contract that DL and the Knoxville home guys have, right? That protect myself so I can exit from this, even if I plan on attempting to perform, right? Even if I'm going to come back and say, hey, I think I can find another buyer for you and I can help solve the problem that we initially connected to solve, right? But I want to write the contract in a way that's not going to be financially ruinous for myself, right? I can always choose to be a more ethical person or go above and beyond what my contractual obligations are. And so one of the things you should do to protect yourself when you're doing this and going into contract with an end buyer is collecting a sizable earnest money deposit. Have some skin in the game. It should sting if they're walking away from the deal the day of. And that money in there is a way to solve some problems, is a way to compensate yourself for some time, right? Having that in there. So what do you collect? What do you like to collect if you're going to wholesale this over as an earnest money deposit?
So this is actually a recent story within the past week. Actually, we had a deal where the buyer unfortunately agreed to terms that they could close within a specific set of time, and they went through 4 different lenders in order to try to do so, and they couldn't get it done. Okay, so now we have a seller who's, typically the people can be in distress positions oftentimes, right? And so they've reached out to us about, hey, I saw your ad. I want to sell my house to you. So we are going to do whatever we can to, whatever terms we set with them, we're going to make it happen, right? So that's when we get buyers, we're very clear with them. Hey, you said you can close in this time. Great. We'll sign for this time. Unfortunately, in this case, it didn't happen. So now the seller's really frustrated. The buyer's kind of like, okay, what's going to happen to my earnest money? I know you asked me a very simple question. I'm turning it into a long one because it's a good story. So we always ask for $5,000 earnest money down, okay? So typically, because if you're going to buy a wholesale deal, you're going to be a cash investor, you're going to have hard money ready, or you're going to have private money ready. Typically, conventional financing is not going to get you one of these properties because of the time it takes in order to close these, or question back there?
The question.
Yeah, this is a great question. So Justin asked earlier, just a second ago, what type of earnest money do you collect for each deal? And so $5,000 non-refundable earnest money deposit. However, I'm here to lay ourselves out as the prime example of having a contract that did not state that it was non-refundable. And so the title company in this case said, hey, we're not going to release the earnest money to you or to them until you both come to an agreement. And so we had to come to an agreement, and thankfully it was a 50-50 agreement, but we have learned now moving forward, because thankfully it doesn't happen all that often, but we will have the non-refundable clause in our contract. Thanks, guy in the back. Good question.
That's our buddy.
That's our buddy.
This isn't gonna. Oh well.
Oh, that's you got it. That was you. That was it.
It's going in and out. It's going in and out. So, who's got a question? What's your name, sir? Kurt, what's your question? I'll repeat it. I love it. Glad you're here. There's some seats up here if you want to join us. But yeah, go ahead.
Good question. I'm hearing a lot of hard money lenders require title search. So if I'm wholesaling, okay, and the buyer comes to me and says, have you done a title search on the property yet? I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And I guess there are other searches you can do if you get a relationship with a title company, but how do you address that? Do you ever have people that say, I can't, my hard money lender requires a title search?
Okay, so this is going to be a two-parter. So to lay the ground, he's saying that a hard money lender is often going to require a title search. There's a difference between hard money and private money. Hard money often refers to institutional money that's like non-conventional, non-QM, so they'll do some different things. I think hard money is a giant pain in the ass. Okay, and I have more often seen hard money not perform than I've seen it perform personally. I like private money, right? Because I've seen people broker through hard money, and it's just gotten difficult in the last couple of years. Anybody else had that experience with hard money not performing? Frankie says yes. Huh?
No, I use approach.
He uses approach. So, but hard money is requiring a title search, right? Because there's still some underwriting guidelines that are going there, and that hard money person sometimes is brokering that through a third party. I think is the biggest difference than maybe that private lender who is privately underwriting that deal themselves. Does that make sense? So if I go to approach or somebody, I am talking to the decision maker. If my buyer is going through a hard money lender, they may have talked to Josh or somebody, but Josh still it's got to go through like an underwriter or something like that. So there's a title search. He's saying, I'm the person, I've got under contract, I want to wholesale it, and they're asking me about a title search. How do you get around that? Are you getting a title search on the front end? How are you addressing that title search requirement for that buyer?
So I've actually never had that question asked to me, and I'm not even just saying that to shoot you down back there. So that'd be unique to me. But what I would honestly try to do in that case is filter through all my other buyers first, because typically no one's going to ask for a title. You can't even really perform a title search until you have a valid purchase agreement that the buyer has rights to. And so it's kind of like, why is he asking you can have the title search ran beforehand. Sometimes we do that with properties that are like, hey, we're probably going to take this one down ourselves no matter what, if we can wholesale it or not. It's good to have the title search already started. But typically we don't have a buyer require it, or I guess a hard money lender require it. If I was understanding that question correctly, maybe in that case you had a hard money lender require a title search to be ran before they would lend on it. I guess that might be a level of protection for them, but
Some of these guys have, they have access to millions of dollars, right? But they've got certain underwriting.
Yep. So he's saying he's using people they've got access to capital. There's some sort of underwriting guidelines. My advice I'd give you would just be simpler: is really be intentional about your title company partner. That is going to make or break so much of this. And if you don't understand what I mean, then maybe I haven't earned the right to wholesale yet, right? Because so much of what we're doing is, can I successfully execute, right, the assignment of this? And is there someone else that is legally going to close that? And let's get into the details of what is that going to look like, right? We call it an A to B to C transaction. The B is the wholesaler. The A is the original seller, right? And then the B wholesaler is assigning their rights to C, which is the end buyer. Some title companies are going to require B, the wholesaler, to close on that property, fund that deal before then I could turn around, I can sell it the same day from B to C, but there's going to need to be some cash. It can't be virtual. Like, there's going to need to be closing at the table, and understanding how you're actually going to execute on the promise that you're making is going to be a big difference for your problem solving. Does that make sense? So if you have a good title company that is wholesaler friendly, they also would be the title company, I think, Kurt, that could quickly solve that problem. Cofield right in front of you, I would talk to him. Yeah, he owns a title company. He's an attorney, and he's very investor friendly. Like, that's what I would do. I'm very much the way I think about solving problems is typically a who. Right? If I have the right who, I can solve any problem. But learning to know who the right who is why you come into rooms like this, because it's not always obvious until you've been doing it a long, long time and you've kind of seen like every scenario, right? I remember selling a house. We were representing a buyer, and the seller just didn't show up. Just didn't show up to closing. And you know what happens when a seller doesn't show up to closing on a $200K condo? Nothing. You're not going to assume it's not worth the money. You just kick rocks. You have to find another place because he doesn't want to sell the place. Like, you don't know that until it's happened. You're like, oh yeah, I have a contract, but how am I going to enforce it? And if I'm not willing to pay money to enforce it, then I might not have that valid of a contract. Cool. Anybody else have any more questions? That was a great question, Kurt. Thank you. Yes, sir.
This would have been sort of a lead-off question, but I am in a window between having studied for the real estate exam and sitting for the exam. But as I'm going through this process, because this is sort of a non-traditional form of real estate, is that actually going to hurt me to get the license? What I want is the knowledge, which I've got. But
Gotcha.
is getting the license going to be a liability or an asset?
Is getting the license going to be a liability or an asset when it comes to being a real estate investor or being a wholesaler specifically? Any of the above. Awesome. You know what? Let's poll the audience, because I think it's a really great question and you get some different perspectives. Who feels like a real estate license limits you in some way as an investor? Will, yeah. What do you think it limits?
Great question.
I'll come. You can think about it. I can come back. All right, cool. Who else thinks that it might limit you? Yeah, Carl.
If you're not gonna sell, if you're saying, I'm not gonna sell real estate, I just want to be an investor, having a license, I think it's good to have the knowledge, but that is a detriment, because you have to, there's duties that you have as an agent and talking in front of somebody. Are you talking in front of them as an investor that's trying to buy it at the best price? Or are you trying to talk to them as a agent to be able to help them solve their problem? And whenever that, runs around, you can do both, but there's a lot of clarity you have to make, and you better do it right.
And Carl, how long have you been an agent for?
I was an agent for about 25 years.
Yeah, and that's why when I mentioned Carl before, being an agent for 25 years, is someone like, oh yeah, no, he gave me great advice. He's great someone I can run things by who's seen a lot and was a broker, et cetera. So what Carl said was, it depends on if you're going to sell. If you don't plan on selling at all, it could be a detriment, right? Because you're never going to exercise that aspect of what it is to be a licensee, which is that I can go receive compensation when acting on behalf of another individual, right? Now, Rob Chavez, that runs Grid, started Grid, that runs Casa. Rob sold $1 billion in real estate. Rob was an investor. Rob got his real estate license so he could collect referral fees. That was it. He said, man, I am doing so much business with other investors. I would love to be able to collect a referral fee on all this business I'm doing, so I'm going to get my license. And what we think at Grid, like, our avatar is not the investor. We love y'all. Our avatar is the agent investor. I think being an agent investor is the best seat in the entire game. When you come in and you're trying to learn how to invest in real estate, you have some different seats you could sit in. You could be a wholesaler, right? That is an active income play. Right now they've just got a job, right? So I go out, I can be an employee and I trade my time for money. I can be an entrepreneur and I trade my time and money for money, which is what y'all are doing right now, building that up, right? And I want to get to the place of actually being an investor, which is where I trade my money for money. Or a business owner, I trade my money for money. Does that make sense? Like, that's not, I'm a practitioner. If Cory's home sick with the flu and he's not selling anything, no money comes into the business. Now, we've got people on the team, right? We built a real estate sales business that's predictable, and the goal is, awesome, Cory's got the flu, and it's fine because Travis and Garrett and we are doing deals, and the money is still coming in. But we think being a real estate agent investor puts you in the center of all kinds of deal flow, right? And the agent just tends to be at the center of the transaction, right? However, I know some folks that don't necessarily agree. Will, did you think about how it holds you back? How do you think it holds you back?
Yeah, kind of to harp on what the gentleman in front of me was saying, in negotiations as well, saying you're prospecting for a property to wholesale, you're talking to somebody and you say, you know, I can buy this property from you for 120 and assign it to someone. There's kind of an inner ethics issue when you know you could sell it for 150 on the market.
Awesome. So as an agent, it's a little tough because I'm coming to you, and Will was on our team. Will relocated here from Austin. He was an agent in Austin. He used to run a moving company. Will's a great guy, and trained him as an inside sales agent. Love Will. We spent many months together in the office, just the two of us, like calling. So I'm calling and I'm prospecting, and I'm talking to Bill. If I am a real estate agent, I'm Superman. I got every toolkit possible. If I am a wholesaler, I am not here to solve your problems. Not in the same way necessarily, right? Like, sometimes he's saying I wrestle with this because I'm coming in here and I got it under contract and there's a spread there that I can make as a wholesaler, but I also know I could have just taken you to the market, right? And so we'll talk about how we approach that on our sales team. Because what we have found is that there are less people, but if you present everyone the opportunity, people will still accept a quick close cash offer. Even when you present them a whole menu of opportunities, including, hey, we'll come in and renovate the property for you and you can pay us at closing. And we still have people accept a quick cash offer, but it definitely is a conflict. When you are running an agent business and an acquisition business, we talk about that. One way we've approached that is having two different people fill those roles. Also, because it is strange, if I come in as the agent and I make that low offer, it may work better if DL does both. If DL comes in and makes that cash offer and then, hey, that doesn't work, I want a retail price. Well, great. Justin can talk to you about your retail pricing options. But it is definitely a conflict. And this is where you start hearing really strong opinions from real estate licensees about wholesaling. Did I cover that fairly, all the agents in here? Yeah? Yeah, and that's completely fine for you, Eric, and that might make sense. Like, if I'm not going to go represent somebody, it might not make sense. Garrett, yes, sir.
Hey guys, just to share, Cory, I appreciate your all's perspective, and I agree and understand, but just a different kind of side. So I was in the wholesaling space before I got licensed, and the big reason I decided to get licensed is that I was finding deals that people wanted to just go ahead and list, and I was just referring those out. So my thought was when I met with Cory, he helped me understand why not get my license in order to throw some of these deals up on my own shelf, so to speak, on the MLS and sell them.
Got it. So you were identifying deals as a wholesaler. And by the way, if you're an agent, a wholesaler is like the best source of business. If you look at the statistics on how many failed wholesale deals list, it's pretty remarkable. In terms of what that conversion actually looks like. And Garrett was saying, hey, I'm really good at cold prospecting. Shout out to Garrett. Just got on the phones like this week and booked an expired appointment today. Let's go, Garrett. Right? I mean, this is like first week of calling. He's doing great. Relocated here from Hawaii. He's a Pisces. I don't know about that. I'm making that up, but he did come from Hawaii. You're Gemini, I see. So anyways, we're going to stop. I don't know. Garrett, we missed your opportunity to find your astrological soul partner.
Comes up, but I was like, wow, I'm dishing out all these deals and getting referrals. Cool, but what if I could just sell those myself?
Sure. You want to come in and do that, and we'll see. I'm curious to see how that works in the other direction too. So, any other questions before we move on?
First, a comment and a question. First, I think it's great that you tell them that, hey, I'm wholesaling. I think that's great to be able to do that. I think, but a question I have is, whenever your listings expire or your 14 days, do you find that because the property's in worse shape than you thought, or because you overpriced it?
Yeah, so the question was for the camera there, that when our deals do fall through or the timeline expires on the contract and we're not able to get the wholesale deal done, we're not able to assign that contract, is it because the property was in worse condition than we thought? Or I think I missed that last part. Or that we were overpricing it. And the reality is sometimes it's a bit of both. I mean, you do so much that you can to walk the property and determine its condition, and then you'll start marketing it to the buyers, and the buyers will come back with a question like, hey, what's the age of the HVAC? Is it working? It's like, oh, when I was there, I actually didn't check that, Didn't check to see if the HVAC was working. Probably a good thing to throw into your site visits when you're doing them. Or, so that's a big cost, right? If you have to replace the HVAC system, that could be $5,000 in your margin right there that the investor's going to want back in order to close the deal. Or is it the case that we price it to it? Sometimes it's both. Oftentimes in the wholesaling world, you're going to run into plenty of times where you get a seller under contract and tell them, I'm going to try at this number. And it all depends on what you're pushing it out there for, right? Or what you're trying to make as well. But I mean, there's been deals where we made $1,000 and it took well over a month and a half, 2 months, and it really almost wasn't worth your time. You spent so much more money in marketing that deal really didn't perform the way you need it to in proportion to the amount of time you put into it to get it closed. And in that case, it was the seller. They got more money than probably was really worth your time to be there working that deal. Great for them, for sure. Hey, it's almost like, I hate to say it this way, but it's almost like a bit of charity at that point, if it makes sense, when you're paying all these people in your company. You made $1,000, but you spent so much time over the past couple months trying to make this deal go through. Yeah, it's just, there's a mixed bag of how to answer that question. It's a load of factors why a deal may not go through. Got a story I'd love to share at some point. We'll let Justin keep going here, though.
And so I'm going to come back. I got some questions on that line, but I want to go through this one. Like, how do you get paid? Like, how do you specifically get paid? You can see the slide here, right, where it talks about some different ways to do it. How do y'all choose to get paid? Let's walk through what that looks like. Is it on the settlement statement? Is it outside the agreement? Like, how am I getting paid?
Yeah. So the title company ensures that you get paid based upon the terms of the contracts that you're using. So you get the original purchase contract with the seller, but then you take another piece of paper to basically sell the rights away for that original contract. It's called an assignment of contract agreement, or an assignment agreement for short. And so on that assignment agreement, it has what I expect to get paid when the buyer comes through. So you find a buyer, you determine the price that they're willing to purchase it at, you give them an assignment contract to sign. When they sign it, that original contract becomes theirs. You no longer have rights to it in the time that between the closing window. So that is their contract now. Your job now is to pretty much transaction coordinate, get that deal to the closing table, and the title company will ensure you get paid whatever the difference is between the assignment contract and the original purchase contract. A lot of people call it your assignment fee. I get this question a lot. What is your assignment fee on your deals? And the answer is, I don't know yet. What are you willing to buy it for? That's legitimately my answer, because I may try to push a property out to make $10,000 on it, but I might make $1,000 over the next 2 months. I don't know. So I don't know what my assignment fee will be until a deal is closed.
Caroline, I saw you had a hand up. Do you have a question?
You kind of went to it because I just can't foresee the future of what the rest of the presentation is going to look like. And I was going to ask you about the money because I am an agent. I've been an agent licensed for 5 years. Wholesaling is over my head. And I know me, along with other agents in this room, have all thought about wholesaling because they're like, y'all are making so much more money than us from one deal on a $230,000 price, or we're getting 2%, 2.4. I know a wholesaler that made $30,000 from a $250,000 house. I'm like, well, what am I doing? So you have, I don't know how your presentation goes. Is there going to be like a sample of numbers we can see, or like, can you go into a description of like what your average? I know you just said you don't know your fee, but on your average of your past 25, 30 deals from this.
Show me your bank account. How much, turn your pockets out. How much money do you make, DL? Yeah. Yeah, no, here, actually, I think that's a great, if you want to, maybe give us an idea. So you only made 1,000 on another. Maybe give us a range or an average of like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so
do you think that you make more money than a licensed agent?
No, I don't. I can confidently tell you that. I can confidently tell you right now, since we got our start last year, I probably don't make. Yeah, I don't. But I can say that the average wholesale contract is about $17,000. And before you ooh and ah at that, we pay about $30,000 in marketing every month. And so that's going to be the big difference maker there. All right. So loads to that story and why we decided to go where we did. And we've seen what does work, what doesn't work. But it's easy to view the wholesaler as, oh, that middleman we wish would just go away, Probably go to a worse place than just away, maybe, I don't know. But the reality is, if someone's doing it, there's the one-off junior wholesaler that, okay, you know what? I don't want to even shoot that guy in the foot if he's in here, okay? I get it, you're grinding, cold calling, do it, man. That's a grind. That's time that man's putting in there. Who wants to sit on the phone all day, every day, just trying to prospect leads? Not me. I don't. Garrett's over here like I do, yeah. It is Garrett, right? Okay, good, got it. Well, I don't at all, Everything we do is inbound, right? So people are calling us, okay? All of our leads have that level of qualification, right? They saw our commercial. They saw our Facebook, Google. I'll tell you, wherever. We're looking for billboards, mailers, whatever it is. They called because they were interested, but that stuff costs money. But it is the most efficient way to generate leads, in my opinion, is inbound use of inbound leads.
So is my math right that do you think you spent $250,000, $300,000 last year on marketing?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, so we think about 17 deals, it's like $10,000 a deal. So it comes down to margin. So when we talk about KPIs, one of the reasons we talk about KPIs, and one of the reasons I love talking about, I'd be happy to consult with anybody, I love talking about this thing, is we are business people. And if you are an investor, you are buying a business, and there is a client acquisition cost in your business. And that could be time, it could be Garrett grinding this all out, it could be marketing dollars, right? But like when I work backwards on that ROI, like it can depend too, like on the agent side, right? If I'm getting referral business from my sphere, because I was like an insurance agent or something, and I transitioned into being real estate. If you have money, being a realtor is like the greatest game into. Look at oh my gosh, why can't I think of his name? Billy, I just draw a blank on it. He used to own Ed Financial. Right? Billy Holiday? No, that's But if you've got a lot of money and you've got a lot of connections, real estate is pretty easy. If you don't have it, as we all know, it is a grind to acquire clients. And so how much money do you think you need to get started wholesaling? You talked about the junior wholesaler. Jeremiah, how much money did you have when you got started wholesaling? None. How many deals did you end up wholesaling before you decided you want to mess with it? How many deals did you wholesale when you were active wholesaling?
Still wholesaling, but like 40, 45.
40, 45 deals, right? Yep. And I've seen you go back out of it, come back into it, but you had none. Yep. So you had no money when you got started, and I watched Jeremiah bootstrap himself up, where it was like cold calling, and then it was texting, and then it was like, maybe I want to run some radio ads, and he would come in here. If you want to go back to our previous How to Wholesale calls on YouTube, Jeremiah's gotten up here and like broken down his dollar amounts. Some of that has totally changed, like the direct text game has totally gone away. There've been some big changes here in like how the game works. It's probably why you guys are doing an inbound based. But you don't necessarily need any capital. Like, you just need the ability to go find a deal and make the phone ring. So that's the first thing we talked about in January, right? How to find a deal. It is always going to be prospecting, networking, or marketing are my 3 ways to identify deals, right? And the sales pitch. Remember this? What's my value proposition for every investor in here? I buy houses, cash, quickly. We're all selling the same thing, right, Dio? Yeah, it's the same message, just a different spin on it, and trying to execute it a little better.
That message is always, every house is bought in some form of cash. It's just, is it yours or somebody else's? Oftentimes they're like, I get the guy who says, I thought you're going to show up here with cash in your hand and buy the house right now. And I was like, I can't even do that if I wanted to. But somebody's money, which is cash, is going to purchase this house. So the message is not a lie. We all are spitting the same message. I'll buy your house in cash. We could all say that, technically.
So I saw a couple of hands. I'm just going to run through a couple basic questions, if that's okay here. So, do I need to understand the renovation costs, the after repair value, or the soft costs for a project to wholesale it? Who feels like they could use some guidance on how to estimate renovations? Awesome. Come next month. We're going to break down exactly how to estimate renovations. And the most important thing for all of us is we are going to give you a framework of 4 categories. So we're all speaking the same language on what kind of level of renovation we're using. Wouldn't that be easy, DL, if we all could be like, oh, cool, hey, no, it's a level 2, and we all knew exactly what that meant, right? That'd be a lot easier for us when we're moving forward. So speaking the same language, if you want to come, I think that's going to be an amazing one. You should understand. You don't have to, right? You can go in. You don't have to understand any product that you're selling. I've worked with some amazing natural-born salespeople, right? But this will be a lot easier if you understand the soft costs, because that's what kills a lot of deals, is wholesalers don't understand renovation costs. So the more I understand that, the more credibility that I have as a wholesaler, right? How do you handle settlement? Yeah. Meaning, so when I say settlement, are you doing A to B to C transactions? Are you looking for somebody that's going to allow a double close and just the end user directly fund the first one? How do you guys like to handle them?
So we handle every transaction the same way. We always use the same title company, an investor-friendly title company. Typically, an investor-friendly title company is going to want you to be doing quite a number of deals, because to be investor-friendly, you need to be able to work quickly, right? That means you need priority with the title company. If they're willing to give you priority with your deals, they'll, perform your searches on a rush, get them back to you in a timely manner so you can actually close this deal like the commercial says, in as little as 7 days, right? So we use an investor-friendly title company, I would say, number 1, and do enough consistent deals with a title company, you'll gain priority with them, even if they're not necessarily advertised as an investor-friendly. This guy in the back's nodding his head. I know he knows. Talk to him, man. If you want to settle the deal appropriately, wholesale deal, talk to that guy. But basically, the buyer is paying for 2 things. They're paying for whatever your assignment fee is and the original purchase price of the property. And then the seller is expecting to receive what the original purchase price was in the contract. And so oftentimes title companies will just give each party what is due them to avoid confusion or conflict for you as the wholesaler, right? So you're not getting an earful later on, why'd you make $10,000 on my house? I thought you were going to do it for free. It's like, I was never going to do this for free, ever. And we're explicitly clear with that never happens because, again, we're pretty straightforward. But I've heard of it happening many times. So the buyer sees what they're paying for. They see your assignment fee, and they see the purchase price of the property, and the seller sees what is due them, the purchase price of the property. They don't necessarily have to see your assignment fee, and that typically is best for you if you're wholesaling properties. Yeah. I think I answered that question.
Yeah, and so there's some different, I think you answered it very, very well.
We love mobile notaries, okay? So I'm reading here on the answer. Typically, most title companies, they'll set up a mobile notary for your seller, a mobile notary for your buyer. Because, again, if we're just trying to find out, if you really want to be a wholesaler and protect your interests in business, you don't want the buyer and seller, honestly, to have too much FaceTime. I don't. If you want to ask questions about that later, I don't think it's unethical, and we can talk through why it's not. But it just, bottom line is, setting up mobile notary options for them to sign is typically easier because they can do it in their own living room, and it's a very minimal cost to keep business moving forward without hindrances due to personal problems.
We had a closing, right, where the agent couldn't attend the closing, sent another agent in his stead. Supposed to be separate closings, was not communicated to the title company, so they closed at the same time. And after the closing table, everything is been signed. The seller's like, so what are you going to do about this issue that you don't know anything about that I totally disclosed to the agent? Did not. Blew the entire deal up, $900,000 deal. Like you may not want your seller and your buyer to be in the same room at closing. It's not necessarily. At best, when it's best, everyone gets along and you're all friends and you like the other agent. Often it is just awkward small talk. You are just making awkward small talk with people that have nothing in common except the fact that they're going to live in the same house. And I'm sitting there the whole time having nothing to do at the settlements. Like if I've done my job correctly, I have no reason to be there except if I'm an agent, I want to take a picture. Otherwise, there's nothing that's going to happen at that closing table. If you are an agent, just be aware that is where you end up paying for things. When you are present and there is some discrepancy, then all of a sudden your commission becomes negotiable. So, just might want to, everyone forgets about all the things you had to do to get it there. So there is some sound reasons to maybe have people sign separately, right? Even outside of this, and you're going to hear different philosophies about whether or not you're disclosing this to your end parties. There's a reason we have DL up here, right? Like, I don't know. I like making money and sleeping well at night, personally, right? If I wanted to compromise myself for money, you could certainly want to do it for a lot more than you're making on these dumb deals, right? If you're going to sell out, go big. Be a congressman or something. Kurt. Kurt is saying when you're running the assignment contract, you're showing the buyer the original purchase and sale agreement as well. Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, they would want to know what they're gaining rights to. They're paying for those rights. I would read them before I pay the premium. Typically, if you have a good contract and you're a trusted name, oftentimes people aren't even asking, but we send it as a matter of principle. You get the original purchase agreement with the assignment agreement to sign.
Well, you kind of want to because, you kind of look at special conditions and who's going to pay what and stuff like that, right? They're not just going to sign.
He's saying you want to send this over. Yes, you want to send this. I've done deals like you just want to send it over because they're signing a binding legal agreement. And I just want to make this very clear. Like contracts are binding legal agreements. A lot of y'all do not read the contract, including agents. I know you don't because I train you. You know what I mean? Like you don't know what's in this contract. It is a binding legal agreement. And failure to perform, you can be sued. We had a client different guy I worked with. They didn't close on the property, I swear to God, because it wasn't close enough to target. He's like, please just close on the property. I'll sell it for free. Just close on the property. They didn't close on the property. They walked away. They said that we'll sacrifice our earnest money. That property resold to somebody else for $30,000 less. And if you haven't been sued, it's probably because you don't sell expensive enough real estate. Because when you sell expensive enough real estate, where there's a $30K difference because you're selling at $800K, they went to a judge, they got an immediate summary judgment. Slam. They did not perform on the contract. They had to write a check for $30,000 because they didn't perform on that contract. Like, so, yeah, this stuff happens. So yes, I think that's to Kurt's point, you know, sending it over, you're going to hear some different strategies. And I would advise you to talk to, like, Jeremiah's in the back. He's a great resource. Talk to DL if you want to get into the specifics of how do you do this and how do you approach this. Should you pull title on the property? I would suggest that you do pull title on property. I would suggest like that you have a business model that puts in place where you can minimize your risks. This is like being a flipper that doesn't inspect properties. Like, that's going to seem like a good idea until it's not, right? Like the down, and what I'm looking at is just what's the downside risk? Okay, so the way major corporations hedge for black swan events, for catastrophic events, is if there is a 1% possibility of a catastrophic event, in your formula, in your algorithm, when you're analyzing this, you do not assign it a 1% weight. Does that make sense? I've got to like assign it more weight. I've got to act as if it's a more likely scenario because it could take the entire ship down. I see Ryan nodding his head over there. Ryan runs a startup over at ORNL, right? Like, we got my engineers nodding in the room. Like, so when it comes to real estate, there are catastrophic risks, you know? And could I not run title? I guess if I want to just pass all that risk along to my unwinning seller and screw that person over. But like, maybe don't be in the game, right? These are real people going through real problems that need real solutions, right? And there is no there's no such thing as business ethics. There are just ethics. Full stop. Yeah, I saw Eric raise your hand.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you have to necessarily disclose to the person, the buyer, what your wholesaling fee is?
Do you have to disclose to the buyer what your wholesaling fee is? So we're asking on that assignment of contract, could I don't know, Cofield, is there a way that I could not disclose this information? I'm going to ask, he's not going to want to answer this. Don't ever ask an attorney to answer a question in a room full of 80 people. That's not fair. But generally speaking, is that a practice that's probably...
Yeah, so what was the question?
Is there a way where I could not disclose, if I could go wholesale a property and not tell the end buyer how much money I'm making?
I mean, like, you can do whatever you want. Is it a good idea, or you're not gonna get sued?
Well, I'm only asking.
So the way to do that, Eric, would be to double close in the property. If you close, it's okay, I'm gonna explain it, but I'm just, for the sake of time, I'm moving quickly. What you would do is you would just go buy the property. If I buy the property, I can turn around and sell it to anybody I want, and I don't have to disclose anything. I mean, they can look at the public records or something, but right? And most people probably wouldn't be upset because they get it. They get upset about you not closing on it and then turning around and reselling it. It feels different. It just feels different because you didn't actually sign it. Yes, Cofield.
I think just to highlight those things you said earlier with the double close, that you'll run into a lot of title companies that won't be comfortable if you're just trying to float the end
So-
buyer's cash.
What Cofield is saying is you go to A to B to C. What some title companies will do is they'll act as if they'll virtually close that B transaction. So I go and I bought the house, but I put no money down because then I turn around and, you know what I mean? In 5 minutes, I'm going to have the money when the end buyer buys it, and then I'll go give the money to A. But that's an illegal, it's not a real transaction. It never actually, right? There was no real exchange of value, and if there wasn't an exchange of value, I don't know. You know what I mean? I've seen a lot of things. I was a mortgage broker in Tampa in 2005. I have seen a lot of people very confidently committing fraud. Like, I get how Enron happened, because when 200 people are committing fraud, you seem like the crazy person. And I've sat there and watched it where I'm like, oh, cool. We got glass doors so people can it makes it easy to copy signatures because it's just happened and it's that common, right? But then those people came back and got prosecuted after the fact. like this stuff eventually unwound. So I don't know. Yes, Morgan.
So wholesale channels shut off to conventional FHA, VA, all that money, and mostly shut off to even DSCR, quote, rental income loans, right? But I know.
So Morgan is saying that if you're doing a wholesale deal and the end user is buying it, that end user is typically not going to be able to use FHA, conventional, VA, or even do like a debt service credit ratio loan or a loan that is factoring in the potential rental income like you normally be able to do. I can go buy a loan as an investment and then I can factor in the rental income instead of using my own income to qualify, right? Is that what the question? Cool.
That's where I'm going with that. But there are two ways to get it done. One, and I've done one of them before, one through a limited power of attorney, and the other way through the wholesaler putting a lien on the property.
Okay, so you're saying I can get the deal done by either putting a limited power of attorney or the wholesaler actually placing a lien on the property, and then because the wholesaler has a lien on the property, then there's some security that allows the lender to go underwrite that deal.
Right, so.
Okay.
Deal, why don't more wholesalers take that avenue? Because of the much larger pool of money available through.
So
those
DL,
funds.
yeah, why not go put a lien on the property? Because then you could go sell that to a regular end buyer. You could sell it to the entire market and not just an investor.
I think the most obvious answer from my perspective might be it just muddies the waters with your seller. And it just depends on how much it means to you to have a good relationship with your seller, you know? And there's already enough that when you go to do a wholesale deal that there's just so much gray area in regards to like, this seems ethical. I'm about to make a $60,000 assignment on this property. This person wants this property so badly. And I did not know I was going to run into this buyer. But my seller's so happy to have the $240,000 that she's getting for her property. You know what I'm saying? And so that's just one kind of example in regards to how the ethics can come into play. Like, man, should I give $30,000 more to myself? But I just spent $30,000 last month, and I didn't get a deal last month. And what am I doing? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? Basically, suffice it to say, I like to do business pretty transparent. You know, like, hey, I'm wholesaling your property to this person, and I'm not going to buy your property. Are we asking why I don't kind of enter into some form of a double close situation more often?
I think he was. Morgan was specifically, and you may not even know this, specifically asking, like, are you, I think, aware that you could be putting a lien on a property? Are there some strategies that you could use when you're going into contract with your initial seller that then would allow you to sell it to an entire audience that could use conventional financing or other terms?
That would be news to me.
Okay. So there we go, Morgan. So that's what we have. We mentioned Morgan is a mortgage nerd. That's it.
Sorry, I just missed that completely.
No, it's a pretty sophisticated question. I want to give, be respectful of our time. We're coming right up on 8. A big hand for DL. Thank you so much for coming out. We appreciate you. Thank you, man.
Can I say one thing?
Of course.
So if you are interested in getting into the world of wholesaling, a side note, 50% of our business is wholesaling. 50% of our business is fix and flips, okay? So we buy a lot of houses as well. But we are hiring for an acquisitions representative to join our team. So what would that look like? It would look like you being the person going out and negotiating the contract with the seller. You don't get deals done without seller contracts in any business in regards to how you're doing it in the real estate world. So we're hiring. Great compensation structure for that person in place. It will be a full-time gig. And we're looking forward to bringing that person on our team who thinks they've got the skill set in order to make things happen there. So come to me after this. I have the application link. You can just scan with your phone, QR code, whatever. So thanks again, Justin.
Thank you, DL. Big hand for DL. Yeah. Morgan, I'm gonna give my version of the answer. Morgan, I would say I think the answer to your question is regulation breeds sophistication. We live in a completely unregulated environment, and we have some fairly unsophisticated practitioners. Like, our parent, like the first grade was started in Reston, Virginia. Reston, Virginia is just outside DC. There is significantly more regulation in the Commonwealth or in Maryland or in DC than there is here. And so like some of these topics that we're talking about are fairly sophisticated. When Mike Capello came here, I got him up on the screen here, and talked about subject 2. They're using third-party mortgage companies because they're doing this in Virginia. Caleb Davis that runs our Edwardsville, it's essentially like illegal to do it in Illinois. So when you talk to him, he is a very sophisticated operator because they've had to figure out, how do I do this thing legally? Like on surface, it's not. Sometimes things aren't illegal. You just need to get a better attorney and walk and pay for this attorney to advise you on how could I do this legally. Even going back, I see Robert nodding his head. We were talking about being an agent and doing fee for services. Now that we all have to enter into an arrangement for me to even send you a video of a property, man, there's a different way that I could be contracting with you for services. I could say, hey, you know what? It's $1,000 and I'll show you 10 properties. Beyond that, we'll renegotiate. Does that make sense? Like there's some different ways I could be doing those things to answer your question. I saw one hand go up. There's another. Do you have a question there? Will, what's your question?
Yeah, so to tie in last month's meeting with this month's, what would be the best way for a newbie to find a deal to wholesale?
What's the best way for a newbie to find a deal to wholesale? Jeremiah, walk up here real fast if you don't mind, man. Come on up here. Come up here real fast while you finish this. Every Monday, this wholesaler training ground, this is Monday afternoon. Every Monday, Mike Capello is running this call at a high level. Mike runs our acquisition company, Sell Simply. That is, Kaza is our real estate team up in Virginia. Mike runs our acquisition company. Mike can tell you deals. These are 100K, 200K assignments, running real sophisticated, right? We have a construction company. Like we're running every facet of this play. Jump on there. If you're curious about wholesaling, you can jump on. It is a interactive call every single Monday, totally free, right? Like we want you guys to have the tools to be successful. If you were doing this alone, I high five for you. I'm not sure. I wouldn't be doing it alone. So if you don't know, my good friend Jeremiah Holmes, Jeremiah is a wholesaler and kind of built himself up, right? Taught himself how to do this after he got out of the Army. And I watched you kind of walk through a bunch of facets of it and touch some hot stoves. And so what would you, to answer Will's question, how would you find a deal if you're new?
That is a great question. Is this thing on? Okay. Well, I would have said I probably would have did texting, but now you really can't do that so much. It's really hard to do. You used to be able to do it without LLC. Now you can't. So, I mean, the first thing I would do, I'd probably just get educated. I think that's the first essential piece to doing anything. So, or before I pursue anything, is just educate on whatever it is I'm about to go do. So I would probably pull lists and cold call, or I'd go hit the streets myself and knock on doors. I mean, I've done that. You can go Craigslist. You can go drive for dollars. I mean, I found my first deal on Craigslist, and I made $5,000, and I had to get it surveyed. So, I mean, I didn't really know much at the time, but being able to do that deal taught me a lot of the problem solving and, negotiating with sellers and things like that. And at the time, I didn't have any agent friends, any contractors. I just pulled up and just did it myself. And I think that's the hardest thing about wholesaling. It's not what you see on TikTok. It's really going out there and do the work. And if you're not prepared to do the work, I wouldn't even pick up the phone and start dialing. I mean, I wouldn't even, you're just going to hurt the industry, and, you think you're going to be doing something right and you're going to be doing something wrong. So I would go find somebody to guide you, and then I'd come up with a plan and just do it. I mean, that's really it. Just do it.
I would attend networking groups, and I would tell people that I'm looking for deals. And I would tell everyone that I met, if you run across an opportunity, because there are a ton of people in here that do not have the capacity to close on a deal, wouldn't know what to do with it. They have no desire to be a wholesaler. I would talk to every person in the room. Hey, if you run across an opportunity, I'd love to pay you for that introduction, even if it's an overgrown yard sign. Does that make sense? And create an army of bird dogs. That's what I would. I'm a big believer in leveraging through people. Thank you, Jeremiah. I appreciate you coming up here. Jeremiah's been a great friend. Cool. Thank you so much. We're going to wrap this all up. Here's all of the resources. We got a Facebook group. There is a national community. Jump in there. Like, there's national capital looking for deals. You can sell deals to people that are not in Tennessee. If you jump in the national one, the local one is Grid Knoxville Investor Mastermind. That calendar at the bottom, gridinvestor.com calendar. We have trainings, multiple trainings every single week. I just did one for grid leaders. We had Brandon Bittenham come talk to all of our grid leaders. Brandon has 17 different entities, right? He teaches like wealth for EXP. He's got 80,000 agents. We were just talking to him. Like, we got some hitters in there if you want to jump in. And then we got YouTube University. There's over 300 videos on YouTube, right? So go to Grid Investor. You can watch other groups. You can see this. We go through like a bunch of flip diaries. Right now, we're doing an agent certification, teaching agents how to invest in real estate. We're going to start that again in April. So if you want to see what that's like, see what we're doing, that is a great way to learn in 7 weeks how to apply all these principles before you go throwing money at bad deals. Thank you so much for coming out. We appreciate you. See you on the 17th, the third Friday. We're going to have a grid coffee right here. Andrew Ellis with U-Brew brings 5 varietals. It's pretty amazing. We usually get about 60 people. Thank you so much for coming out today.